was that the young people that we hired together with the new senior executive were running around this executive in circles. They were much hungrier, they're much more flexible. So that's why we tried something completely different. So we went to the UK again, hired 5 really, really top talent, straight out of school, straight out of the university. We brought them to Norway, trained them for 3 months, and sent them back. And then things just completely took off.
And you let them run with it, and they did it
Exactly,
themselves.
exactly.
Okay.
So since then, all the 50 offices that we sent...
50 offices,
yeah,
just so
50
clear.
offices globally.
Wow, okay.
And all those offices have been then basically built by people that had no working experience or very limited work experience. They come straight out of school, and but they were local. They came from the country that we wanted to set up the business, or even in the city.
So they understand their individual market.
Yes, they understand it. Culture, language, sentiment in the market, and so on.
Yeah.
And that has proven really, really successful for us.
So it's almost like you're setting up a mini startup in each country or market you're going to.
Yes, actually, to a large extent it really is, because it's very, very entrepreneurial in that sense. So you're a team, a handful of people that's basically going to build a business. We provide them with the funding, we provide them with the technical support and so on, but it's up to them to figure it out.
Okay, great. And then coming to the US, how were you able to do that?
Yeah, so expanding to the US was one of the most important things that we did in terms of expansion. So we were very humble coming to the US. So you hear about European companies doing really well in Europe, but when they come to the US, they get their ass kicked. The most competitive market in the world, right? We call it the mother of all markets.
Yeah.
So we were very humble. So the way we did it was that we were 4 people, we made a pact. We decided if we're going to do this, we need to do it with conviction. So we sold everything we owned in Norway.
This is all the top management of the company.
Yeah, it actually was the management team of the company. It's 4 people, 4 out of 5 managers.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just sending the sales guy out. This is your top.
Yeah. So this time we took the management team over, and we landed here in Silicon Valley. We were completely clueless. We landed here driving up 101. We couldn't find Silicon Valley. Because in our naivety, we thought that Silicon Valley was high-rise building, really modern, really high-tech, and all we found was sleepy suburbs. So once we figured out exactly what Silicon Valley was, then we decided to find an office. We found an office in the middle of Silicon Valley in Mountain View.
Okay.
So
who helped you figure things? Who told you where Google was, or who showed you around?
We Googled it. Yeah, no, so we were pretty clueless, but we found some people.
This was 2005?
This was 2005.
Okay.
So we got up and running in 2006, spring of 2006. But we were, yeah, we were pretty clueless, to be honest. Then we came in suits and tie, you know. We were standing out like a sore thumb initially.
But you kind of figured it out and tried things out and figured it out as you went along. Yeah,
exactly. So I remember the first recruitment session we had. We tried to find somebody, and we interviewed 20 people, and there were none of them that worked out. I mean, none of them they wanted to bring on board. So we looked into the wrong places to hire people. There are lots and lots of learning.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, what would you? I mean, now you're at you said 150 million now in revenue. Okay. I mean, what would you advise for a lot of these startups who are here today if they want to come to break into the U.S. market or another market where they're not from?
So I think different companies probably have very different, things that need to do in order to succeed here in the U.S. But I think one thing that is very, very attractive in the U.S., which I think is just phenomenal, is that selling something in the US is to a large extent based on value proposition. So Americans are very pragmatic. If it makes sense, if you come with something that is better, faster, cheaper, they're open. And then they test you out. And that's not necessarily so in other countries. See, if you come with something that is better, faster, cheaper, they're still a little skeptical. If there's cultural habits that they don't want to change. Maybe there's even a trust issue. They want to know you, they want to see you in the neighborhood the longer period before they're willing to change. But Americans are very pragmatic and very rational in their buying patterns. And I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I was wondering is that the tough thing about what you're doing is not just you're launching a consumer app or consumer website, you're actually beating down the doors of these big companies
Right.
and selling through to them. Like, how are you able to get into these big, Fortune 500 companies and make a sale?
Working really hard at it. I don't think
just one by one, sort of
yeah.
increasing one by one.
Yeah, one at a time.
Yeah.
A lot of door knocking and rejections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Great. Wanted to talk a little bit more about your company, but you also have started this really interesting foundation in Africa and school and incubator there. Can you talk about how that came about and what you're doing there?
Right. Originally,
what's it called? Sorry, what's it?
Yeah, it's called Meltwater Entrepreneur School of Technology.
Okay.
So it's based in Ghana. It was started in 2008, and it's really a way to take our core expertise. So Meltwater is a software company, and we put enormous amount of effort in training and nurturing talent.
Yeah.
We hire a lot of young people, train them really, put a lot of effort into training them. So, and that's really what we apply then in non-profit context. So the school started in 2008. We bring on board really top local university graduates.
Mm-hmm.
They go through very rigorous selection process and aptitude test and really selective. It's around 1,000 applicants that is boiled down to 20 to 25 every year.
Wow, so just 25 students per year in the school.
Yes, so it's a very concentrated program. Yeah. It's a 2-year program. And during those 2 years, you're really taught how to program because they're university graduates, but they could come from everything from food science to English, literature to whatever major.
And why did you do that as opposed to just bringing in programmers? Yeah,
so we had a lot of philosophies around that, or discussions. And partly the notion of talent. Talent doesn't necessarily sit in a certain specific major. In a way, maybe would have made it easier for us if you only picked computer science people.
Yeah.
But I also like in the diversity, because different majors bring in different perspectives and different business ideas and business opportunities. Mm-hmm. So the first year we had a 50-50 of computer science and non-computer science people, or non-engineering people, I would say. That was a good mix, but then next year we tried more on tech and engineering heavy.
Yeah.
And it became very different dynamic in the group. So we moved back to 50-50 engineering/science plus completely unrelated. And we think that's been really valuable because, we want to build successful software entrepreneurs. That's the school. It's a school that's a 2-year program. We teach them how to program. We teach them how to write business plan and pitch their business ideas. And what we want to create are software entrepreneurs. And one of the arguments is that the best software entrepreneur could be the worst coder.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't mean that just because you hire people from computer science that you have the basis for good entrepreneurs.
Right.
So that's why we just looked at talent. So the people come in the door, we look at their innate personal qualifications. So that's really the starting point.
How do you select people? How do you determine their sort of entrepreneurial aptitude?
Yeah, so that's challenging. So we have them go through different exercises and workshops and so on, and it's just trying to see if there are any evidence of entrepreneurial background and acumen historically.
Mm-hmm. Okay, who's shown their most interest in entrepreneurial activities and things like that? Okay, great. And I mean, you talked about that in terms of translating some of the skills and knowledge you have as a company to this sort of nonprofit context and sort of development. It's sort of a different, interesting to me is it's a different kind of development. It's like, as opposed to just donating money, you're actually sort of trying to build the economy. Right.
So the overall objective and vision for this school is to create wealth and jobs locally. So the school itself, we train people that want to become software entrepreneurs. So we train them for 2 years. At the end of the 2-year program, there's a 10-minute investment pitch. And if they do a good pitch, we give them funding. And that's based on, pure commercial consideration. Do we believe enough in the idea?
Mm-hmm.
And if they do get funding, they typically get an average $100,000 in funding, which gives them probably like an 18-month runway. Then they move into the incubator. So we now have an incubator with 13 companies in Accra, Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
And we are really trying to do everything we can to make these startups successful. So we have a team here in San Francisco to help bridge relationship with the whole Silicon Valley ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
But our overall objective is not only to create successful entrepreneurs, but mostly we want to create role models. So, for example, if you were able to get a $10 million exit, which is a very modest exit in terms of IT and software,
yeah,
$10 million is still a lot of money. All over the world, $10 million is a lot of money. But imagine how much that is in Ghana for a couple of kids out of the local university there.
Yeah.
Overnight, they will be instant rock stars. They will be in front of newspapers, they will be on TV shows, they will be everywhere. And all the kids in Ghana, they will look at these guys and look, wow, these guys did that.
Mm-hmm.
They came from Ghana like us, went to the same high school maybe. If they can do it, maybe we can. And hopefully they can also be role models not only for Ghana but for countries all over Africa. And Africa is a population of 1 billion people. So we can contribute to inspire and the upcoming generation of 1 billion people, soon to be 2 billion. In 2040, it's predicted to be 2 billion people in Africa. That's a staggering growth in itself.
Yeah.
But if we can contribute to inspire that upcoming generation, and also to empower them, because, a computer costs a couple of $100. And after that, it's entirely up to your own drive, conviction, and creativity. And if we can inspire the upcoming generation of 1 billion people, and they see the opportunity within software, see the opportunity applying their intellectual aptitude into building software that can, both for the African market and international market,
mm-hmm.
then hopefully we can contribute to build a vibrant software industry across the African continent.
Yeah. I mean, do you see bringing this model to other countries or other regions, or?
So we had all sorts of requests from pretty much all over Africa, Latin America. I think even in Ohio there was a request coming if we could try to set up something there. So far we really focused on Ghana, because the focus is really important for us. The sheer concentration of entrepreneurial trained people that is pumped into Accra, the capital of Ghana,
mm-hmm.
over time, that concentration hopefully can also contribute in a positive way.
Do they have like a strong university system or something that's sort of building up? Because like you hear about, can you do Silicon Valley elsewhere, but usually it's in a place where there's sort of some sort of anchor.
Right. So when we chose Ghana, we were pretty clueless. So we announced this idea to set up a school at the company event. It's an annual company event. So the January 2007 said, 1 year from now, we're going to set up a school in Africa. It's going to be for software entrepreneurs. But I never been to Africa before. I never set up a school before. So we figured it was good to have some data points before we decided on how and where.
Mm-hmm.
So then we had a fact-finding mission that traveled all over Africa, did hundreds of interviews with NGOs, universities, entrepreneurs, startups, etc. And then we chose Ghana, partly because of the education system. It's a very strong education system. Mm-hmm. There's a history of education. They also train a number of states leaders from all African state leaders from other countries as well. And in addition to that, there are direct flights. It sounds like a petty thing, but it's, from a practical perspective, it's important. Direct flights to London, New York, Amsterdam, Frankfurt, etc. So makes it easy for people to come in and out, because a lot of the training is done by international people.
Yeah.
Guest lecturers, entrepreneurs, Silicon Valley investors, entrepreneurs, CEOs has been there. So and lately, Bono was there 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
So Bono, of course, is very interested in Africa and has been interested in figuring out how technology can address poverty.
Mm-hmm.
So they did research about technology in Africa, and our school came up, and he asked if he could come. So I said, yeah, please come. And he showed up in an entourage of 80 people from all over the world, and I think he had a really good session there, actually.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you yourself have brought in, you've sort of recruited entrepreneurs and teachers to go there and to sort of build this thing, right? The
faculty there are practitioners. So we call it Meltwater Entrepreneurs School of Technology, but it's really as much a corporate training program as it is a university program.
Mm-hmm.
So the faculty are practitioners, typically have 15 to 20 years background in software development or building software companies.
How do you get them to come? Are you paying them, or how are you getting them there?
Yeah, we pay.
Obviously, all right. They're going to be there for 18 months.
Yeah, so they are there for 18 months, seeing the students through the first month. They are just people that are really accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
They're basically proven to themselves and everyone else all the things they want to do. We have one guy that was down there was a worldwide CTO for one of the subsidiaries of Sun Microsystems, with 30 years experience in the tech industry and here in Valley. And they just want to contribute in a positive way and can see how their experience, how their skill sets can be, put to really good use in an impactful way in our program. And in addition to that, we have teaching assistants that are volunteers from all over the world, from top schools. This time we have from Princeton, from Yale, from Oxford, from Stanford, people that have that background. They take a year off between their undergrad or graduate maybe, or even between the school as well, just to volunteer.
Wow.
Which I think is just phenomenal.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, you always hear that it was better back in the days, but one of the things that I think that the upcoming generation are much more conscious focused in terms of, everything from environment to poverty. I think the upcoming generation are much more philanthropic in their DNA. So I've been blown away with the kind of people that are joining.
Yeah, that's awesome. One thing, can we go back to your company? Because there's a couple things I forgot to ask you about your company. Yeah. We talked about the your school, which I think is amazing. But one thing about your company is you bootstrapped this the whole way, and I forgot to ask you, why did you never raise venture capital or get investors or things like? Is it just because you weren't able to, or you just didn't want to? How did that happen?
So initially, when we started the company, we were considered raising a little bit, but we decided we want to do it ourselves. And
you had other people starting with the company with you?
Yeah, so we were considering whether we needed some capital or not. Then we decided that this should be a cash-rich business. So we figured, then it's a bigger upside if we do it ourselves.
Right, that's the model.
So of course you need to be very careful if you have. So we started with $15,000, right? But things very quickly became very cash-rich. So I don't think we could grow faster even if we raised capital. So the main bottleneck for our growth had nothing to do with capital, but it was more the management bandwidth that we were able to develop internally. So it was our ability to attract, train, and develop managers. That was really the main bottleneck across the company.
What would you advise startups today in terms of raising capital, whether it's a good idea or not?
So I don't know how much VCs there are in the audience here, but
there was a panel right before. I don't know if they've left, but
my strong recommendation is, go bootstrap as long as you possibly can.
Yeah,
I think you can still associate yourself with knowledgeable people, entrepreneurs, executives in industry, people with industry knowledge, and that can help you. But if you are able to bootstrap it, I think the DNA that you build in a company is also much stronger.
And can you talk about that in terms of is it because you're relying on things internally, or it's more capital efficient, or how does that affect the company?
I think it was also a sense of pride because we never raised any debt either. For the first 10 years, we didn't have any debt either. So it was a good way to balance our ambition to grow and also the soberness of what can we actually afford. Because before we bought and invested in a new office, furniture, or computers, or hired people, we actually needed the money in the bank. So it's a good, accelerator and brake for us to manage our growth. Yeah, so I think also everyone was also very cost conscious because you knew that there were no external money, so everyone were really focusing on how to spend their money. So overall, I think it's just a healthy thing.
Yeah, and you think that's kept you as a fairly lean, efficient organization?
So I'm now making sure that we try to maintain that up through the years, but yes, absolutely.
Okay. Can you talk about just a little bit more on your company building and sort of what were the key, what has been your keys to expansion or to growth, and how to keep, focus on what you want to do as you expand?
So I think there are a couple of things. I think the number one thing that I did the 5 first years was hiring.
That was your focus in terms of?
I spent more than 2/3 of my time hiring. So the 5 first years of the company, I oversaw the hiring of every person. So there was somebody in my management team that did the back-of-the-envelope calculation. I met more than 3,000 people during the 5 first years of the company in interviews, face-to-face.
Wow. I think Google, if I recall correctly, I don't know if they still do, but up until a certain point, the CEO had to sign off on every
right. Yeah.
hire. Yeah.
I think that's super critical, and bringing the right talent. And the reason why I focus so much on investment or in hiring during the 5 first years was that I knew that those people that was brought on board at that time, they will be the future executives and key people within the company in the next years and the years to come. And they in turn will hire their own people.
Right. Usually they bring their friends or their colleagues. And
exactly.
Yeah.
So the people we brought on board the first 5 years of the company was really critical in terms of set this tone, the culture, the standards, and the whole philosophy. So I think the strength of the company today and the consistent culture across the company was really based on the people we hired back in the days.
And how do you decide, what do you look for, how do you decide this is the person we need to hire?
So we actually have 6 specific criteria that we rate every interview based on. So everything from future potential to take on bigger responsibility, that's the number 1 criteria.
What's the number 1?
Potential to take bigger roles. So we hire a person, but we don't hire the person to fill a particular role. We hire a person to fill a role 2 years or 5 years down the road.
So even if they're entry level, you see, can I see this person as a manager? Or
yes. So
senior person.
An entry level person, for example, the question we ask ourselves is, do we see this person go to Canada to set up an office and oversee that expansion in 2 years? If you think that should be possible, then we hire. If you think, no, that's not going to happen, then we don't hire a person. So it's for future and bigger roles than the role that they join day one.
So that's pretty forward thinking in terms of how you think about the hiring and the process.
Yeah. So that's one thing, is the management potential, drive, stamina, team player, communication skill, humor, personality and humor, those kind of things. Yeah. But I guess the one thing that I figured out over the years that was maybe kind of baked into all of this was really how positive they were. So, and positive is much more, I come to a conclusion that much more than the first say, oh, this is a nice and positive person. You know, because if you see the world through a positive lens versus a negative lens, it dramatically changes your thinking, your decision making, how you invest, which people you hire, etc. I think a positive mindset, or a negative mindset, is really probably one of the most determining factor that determines people's life trajectory. So it's not about skills, aptitude, intelligence, just whether you are a positive or negative person. Actually, it determines where you end up in life. Yeah. Wow.
You know, this talk has really touched my heart, you know, and we want to hear you again in Korea if you have a chance to join us.
Yeah, no, this is a really amazing start.
But you know, we are pressed. We are already over time, and so let's thank our guests here, and we look forward to hearing more of this story. We even had some pictures that we didn't have time to share, but we'll make sure to have a way of sharing those. Thank you. Thanks again one more time.